This cartoon was published by the American magazine Puck in March of 1888. The cartoon criticized American businessmen for welcoming large numbers of low-paid immigrants, leaving American citizens unemployed. The mysterious irony about this cartoon was that it was published by a magazine that was founded by the son of an undocumented, or call him, illegal immigrant. So what's going on here? How can the son of an illegal immigrant criticize illegal immigration? Well, we'll continue the story of this cartoon later in the video. For now, I think I should tell you how this video will end. By the end of this video, I will try to persuade you that mass immigration or illegal immigration is bad, but it's also good. However, there's a sweet spot somewhere here. Unfortunately, American politicians hate anything in the middle, which is why half of them think it's okay to deport everyone who is not a Native American, and another half think it's okay to open the border so the entire world comes into the country. Two stupid ideas. Anyway, let the story start. During the 1880s in the United States, many Americans were worried that the uncontrolled immigration from Italy, Poland, Germany, Ireland, England, Sweden, and Russia would negatively affect America and its citizens, which was the reason for publications such as this. Many Americans in this era saw mass immigration as a bad thing for the future of the country, and there were many anti-immigration groups and leaders. For example, Henry Cabot Lodge, who was a famous historian and lawyer, said, "The restriction of immigration is one of the most important subjects to which this country should give attention." Cabot later became a US Senator and wrote a book in 1891 titled The Restriction of Immigration. Dennis Kearney, Samuel Gompers, Josiah Strong, Francis Amasa Walker, Terence V. Powderly, and James G. Blaine were all famous for their anti-immigration stance. Some of these leaders believed that immigration was bad for religious purposes, even though most European immigrants were Christians like Americans. Believe me, I'm not making this up. Someone like Josiah Strong wrote a book to warn Americans about the invasion of the country by the Catholic Church through immigration. Others focused on the effects of immigration on American labor, culture, politics, and race. However, 100 years later, according to a US national poll, the Americans' views on these same people, the immigrants who came a few decades ago, have changed. On page 85 of this 2004 book, Immigration, Opposing Viewpoints, American writer Mary E. Williams wrote about a 1982 poll. This national poll was conducted by the Roper Center at the University of Connecticut. The respondents were shown a card listing many groups who had been immigrants in the United States for many decades and asked, thinking both of what they have contributed to this country and have gotten from this country, for each one, tell me whether you think, on balance, they've been a good or bad thing for this country. The results showed that 75% of Americans believe that Italian immigration was a good thing. 74% believe that European Jewish immigration was a good thing. 73% believe that Polish immigration was a good thing. And generally, most Americans surveyed believe that those immigrants who have been in the country for a long time were good for the country. Now, does that mean Americans of the 1980s were better people than their fathers 100 years earlier? No. Does that mean these people are now positive about mass immigration? Well, prepare for another twist in this story, because when the same people who said that immigrants who have been in the US for decades are good for the country were asked about new immigrants, more than 55% of Americans said the new immigrants would be bad for the country's future. So, were they right? I'll answer that question very soon in the video. For now, let's see how American public opinion about immigration shifts continuously till this very day, just as it did in the story I just told you. According to a 2002 Worldview survey, a survey of Americans that took place after 9/11 found that 55% of Americans wanted their government to reduce legal immigration. But then, 2 years later, another study found that most Americans believe that legal immigration should remain at the current level or increase. In 2006, out of all US adults surveyed, only 28% said that they believe the growing number of immigrants helped American workers. But, wait for it, are you ready? 10 years later in 2016, again, those views had changed. According to Pew Research, 42% of Americans now believe that immigrants help American workers, while as much as 66% now said that the US should allow illegal immigrants to become citizens provided they meet certain requirements. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that the people who hate immigrants are far-right, extremist, Trumpist, racist, bigotist Americans. Okay, first of all, I'm not sure that last word is in the dictionary, but I guess nobody cares. Second of all, most surveys of Americans show that, at least on the issue of immigration, Americans think with their heads, meaning that Biden or Trump voters don't necessarily believe the talking points of their gaffe-prone, grandstanding, ultra-centenarian candidates. For example, in November 2016, only 55% of Trump's voters thought he would do the right thing about illegal immigration. By December 2016, 60% of Trump voters said illegal immigrants should be allowed to stay and become US citizens if they meet certain requirements. Requirements such as paying taxes, having no criminal record, having no ties to terrorism, and believing Coca-Cola cures COVID-19. Now, let's start making sense of all these numbers by talking about Trump himself. The third surprising thing about US immigration policies is about Trump. Before he became president, Donald John Trump promised to deport 400 million people out of the 300 million US population. But then, when he became the president, he was like, Pen, what's up? Dude, I'm not a pen. I'm pants. Okay, the plural of pen is pants. Okay, I'm listening. So, how many billion people are we deporting? I'm afraid, guy, we can't deport a lot of people. But why? Why can't we? If our police need some help, I have a big hand. Mr. President, I don't want to tell you this, but you see, most illegal immigrants work in fast food restaurants, KFC, McDonald's, and Burger King. You mean if we deport them, I won't have my Big Mac again? Yeah, but I think, Mr. President, I think you need to lose some weight. So... Wait! Are you kidding me? Do you think I became the president by eating rabbit food? No, I need my burgers and fries. Vegetables are for poor people. By the end of his term in office, Donald Trump had deported fewer people than Obama, who never promised to deport anyone. Maybe I should repeat that. Trump, who promised to deport everyone, ended up deporting fewer people than Uncle Barack, who pretended he loved immigrants.
Can you believe that?
For example, in his first 3 years, Trump deported just about 800,000 undocumented immigrants, while in his first 3 years, Barack Obama, who never promised to deport a chicken, had deported an unbelievable 1.18 million people.
The son of a bitch.
So what's going on here? Why are Americans' opinions about immigration so unstable? Why would someone like Obama, who seems like a cool-headed guy from what seems like a pro-immigration party, deport more undocumented immigrants than a person whose entire campaign was about how to get rid of the people from some shithole countries? Let's check some numbers that can explain this abnormality. First, American immigrants pay about $579.1 billion annually in US taxes, far more than they take from the government. Second of all, according to a study by Northwestern University economist Elisa Jacome, using incarceration rates as a proxy for crime, a team of economists analyzed 150 years of US census data and found immigrants were consistently less likely to commit crimes than people born in the US. In fact, immigrants are 60% less likely to be incarcerated than the US citizens. And third, which is probably the most important, even though American immigrants are just 13.8% of the US population, they own 22.6% of the US businesses. Which means that even if they take your jobs when they first come in, immigrants end up creating more jobs than you lazy Americans. See, that joke is not even funny because calling Americans lazy is like telling a man who just banged your wife that he's not man enough. If Americans were lazy, they wouldn't have their warplanes destroying everywhere on the planet, would they? Back to the story. Immigrants are more likely to innovate and invent things than US citizens, which is the reason why immigrants are responsible for around 30% of US patents. A significant proportion of American scientists and engineers are immigrants. In fact, 33% of all US PhDs in science and engineering were awarded to foreign-born graduate students as of 2004. US immigrants make $110 billion in annual revenue, and they account for 17% of US GDP, amounting to $4.32 trillion in 2022. Now, I need to stop regurgitating numbers about how great immigrants are, because let's face the music. Numbers are not people. The very first problem you encounter when you try to defend mass or illegal immigration with statistics, just as Joe Biden paid me to do so far in this video, is that statistics are not necessarily people's personal experiences. For example, how many times have you heard in the news that the economy of your country has grown by 17,000%, yet you are poorer than ever before? How many times have you heard in the news that the government of your country created 3 billion jobs, yet 5 members of your family are unemployed? How many times have you heard in the news that the GDP of your country is quadruple, yet inflation won't allow you to buy the Big Mac?
I don't even order bacon anymore. You know, bacon's gone up like 5. I said, it's too expensive. I don't want it. I don't want it.
The 3 examples I gave you just now show how good numbers on the paper may not necessarily be the same with people's experiences. So let me ask you, which would you believe in? Statistics or your experiences? Yes, statistics say that US immigrants end up creating more businesses than American citizens, but this guy, Mr. Johnson, just lost his construction job because his boss hired cheaper undocumented immigrants. What would you say to Mr. Johnson? I guess you'll tell him that mass immigration is good, because statistics say it's good, right? This is Joseph. He is getting paid $13 per hour in the same job he used to earn $17 per hour because his employer now has access to hundreds of illegal immigrants who are desperate enough to work for even $7 per hour. I don't know, but I think you cannot persuade Joseph to believe that mass immigration is a good thing. The second problem you have if you're trying to defend mass immigration with statistics is that the human mind doesn't do well interpreting or understanding statistics. For example, on page 66 of his 2018 book, Factfulness, Hans Rosling wrote, "Hunter-gatherer societies often had murder rates as high as 10% and children were not spared." On page 121, he wrote about how terrorist attacks killed an average of 159 people in the US in 20 years, while during the same period, alcohol killed 69,000 people per year. On page 139, he wrote, "In 1950, 97 million children were born and 14.4 million children died. That comes out as 15% death rate." He then explained that by 2016, only 3% of kids died. On page... Okay, that's enough. I have to stop quoting from this book. Being a professor of international health, Hans Rosling wondered why we are much more fearful today than our ancestors were hundreds of years ago, even though every single statistic showed that the world is 100 times better, safer, and more peaceful than ever. Hans wrote this book to show us that, for example, the odds of dying in a plane crash are 1 in 11 million, while the odds of dying in a car accident are 1 in 5,000. In other words, you are 2,200 times more likely to die inside this thing than to die inside this. Yet, 33% of people are afraid of flying, while nobody is afraid of this mobile coffin. You are 500 times more likely to be killed by alcohol than by a terrorist, yet we're all afraid of terrorists, but no one fears these bottles. So, what am I trying to say? Well, human minds pay more attention to who or what makes something happen than what actually happened.
What you find is that we as humans simply have a profound inability to understand statistics.
Our reactions to statistics are very different depending on what caused it.
Yes.
And I'm intrigued by that. I don't have a good understanding of it. Do you realize last year we lost as many people in the United States to traffic accidents as we did in all the years we fought in Vietnam? Look at the effort we put up as a country beginning maybe 1967, certainly 68, to stop the carnage.
For example, America loses about 50,000 people in auto accidents every year. Nobody cares. I mean, nobody cares. But when America lost an average of 3,000 people per year in the Vietnam War, there were riots and protests everywhere. Now, let me show you how these examples apply to immigration. If a citizen of America carries a gun, goes to a school and shoots everybody, you'll hear about it one time on Fox News and 3 times on CNN. That's the end, because, well, mass shootings by Americans happen every day. But let's say the same thing happens, but this time around, it is an undocumented immigrant that did the shooting. Now, that's a big news. Fox News will talk about it for 9 months. So, it doesn't really matter that American criminals kill 10,000 Americans each year. What matters is that one undocumented criminal kills 2 Americans. You can criticize the people who have problems with mass or illegal immigration how much you want, but that doesn't make you superior to them in any way. Again, numbers are not people. In his 2012 book, The Storytelling Animal, American literary scholar specializing in literature and evolution, Jonathan Goshaw wrote, "We are, as a species, addicted to story. Even when the body goes to sleep, the mind stays up all night telling itself stories." I started this video with this 1888 cartoon by the Puck magazine. Founded in 1876, Puck magazine was the first successful color cartoon magazine in the United States. And guess what? It was founded by the child of an immigrant, an Austrian man named Joseph Kepler. Kepler's father escaped the European revolutions of 1848 and ran to the United States. In today's definition of illegal immigrant, he was an illegal immigrant, but his son went on to create a successful company which buttresses the statistics I earlier shared with you that, on average, immigrants are more likely to build a business in the US than American citizens. Now, let's have a second look at the story of this cartoon. The cartoon criticized American businessmen for welcoming large numbers of low-paid immigrants, leaving American citizens unemployed. That is a captivating story, and you can use such a simple story to convince a lot of people that immigration of any kind is bad, leading to many people hating immigrants. On the other hand, if you want to defend how good immigration is for Europe or America, you will have to use statistics. That means, wherever we want to talk about whether mass immigration is good or bad, one side often chooses the story as the weapon, while the other side can only rely on statistics.
Every single study that I've seen has shown that immigrants have boosted the economy and contributed to the public purse.
They're coming from the Congo, Yemen, Somalia, Syria, all over the world. They're coming. They're country changing, country threatening, and they're country wrecking. They're destroying our country.
High levels of immigration tend to expand the total size of an economy.
There is a problem with the speed of immigration because it changes the country. It is all very well to say that we are open to people who share our values. But if our values water down and the people who come here come at the rate they have, it is not surprising that we will end up arguing for immigration as an economic thing, because we will be giving up our culture, we will be giving up our identity, and we will...
It costs us probably, $1 billion or more a year to educate these people that are coming across with their children.
Of the 400 richest people in America this year, 42 of them are immigrants, and they're injecting billions of dollars into the economy.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
Researchers just performed some more meta-analysis that indicates that immigrants don't actually make major metropolitan areas more unsafe.
In this battle of story versus statistics, the story almost always wins because the human mind evolved to understand stories while statistics is alien to our brain.
Surely in your life, you have taken an average of numbers before. The first time anyone ever did that, to realize that maybe there's some interesting result here, was after the invention of algebra, trigonometry, geometry, and calculus. Statistics is just something that the human brain, it's just not natural.
This is not to say that people who use statistics to defend borderless, no question asked, every cat and dog is welcome immigration policies are right. It's just to say that political leaders and intellectuals can easily focus on either a story or some statistics to deceive people that one of these two extremes is the way to go, when the truth is in the middle. My mother used to tell me that too much of anything is bad. By the way, it's because of that advice I don't pay my taxes, rent, or my bills because they are too much. Guess what? I'm making this video from the prison. Thank you so much for watching.